Hello everyone and welcome to Dutch Greybeard. Before diving into my reading experience of the 5 books in the Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy series by Douglas Adams, let me fire off a spoiler warning. These books are relatively old. They were published from 1979 till 1993. I am probably one of the last people on Earth who had not read them. But still, if you do not know these books and intend on ever reading them, I will talk spoilers in this video. I started reading this trilogy of 5 books on August 4 and finished them on December 13 this last year. My feelings about this very popular series are mixed, to say the least. I experienced enormous differences between each book and within each book as well, for that matter. The first book, The Hitchhiker's Guide to the Galaxy, is my absolute favorite of the lot. The intro of 2 pages already got me laughing out loud 3 times. The over-the-top absurdity of the story is very funny. Take this example. Bypasses are devices which allow some people to dash from point A to point B very fast, whilst other people dash from point B to point A very fast. People living at point C, being a point directly in between, are often given to wonder what's so great about point A that so many people from point B are so keen to get there. And what's so great about point B that so many people from point A are so keen to get there? They often wish that people would just once and for all work out where the hell they want to be. Only at times does the absurdity topple out of its funniness to be left as simply absurd, or too absurd. That's where the writer loses me as an interested reader. Nonsense, for the sake of being nonsensical, is not funny to me. But in this first volume, these moments are rare. This absurdity issue will reappear in this video later on. I highly admire the way the author wields the English language. When Arthur Dent tells Fort Prefect, who wants to introduce him to Savard Beeblebrox, that they've already met, Adams describes Ford's astonishment like this. When you're cruising down the road in the fast lane and you lazily sail past a few hard-driven cars and you're feeling pretty pleased with yourself and you accidentally change down from 4th to 1st instead of 3rd, thus making your engine leap out of your bonnet in a rather ugly mess, it tends to throw you off your stride in much the same way that this remark threw off Fort Prefect of his. Or this seemingly easy description. Arthur slapped his arms about himself to try and get his circulation a little more enthusiastic about its job. Some of Adams's metaphors are hilariously funny. Arthur and Ford have somehow boarded a Vogon spaceship. Ford describes the Vogon. They've got as much sex appeal as a road accident. The story of the first book doesn't really have a finale to speak of. At the end, it left me wondering what to think of this book. Is it genius or ridiculous? Whatever the answer is to that question, I had enjoyed reading it in only 2 sittings and gave it 79 points out of 100. I almost immediately started reading the second book, The Restaurant at the End of the Universe. It took me a while to understand that the end in the title refers to a position in time and not a place. That alone is a remarkable find and shows again Adams' exquisite mastery of the language. The first few sentences of the book, spread out over 2 pages, drew me in right away. On the first page, there's a theory which states that if everyone discovers exactly what the universe is for and why it is here, it will instantly disappear and be replaced by something even more bizarre and inexplicable. Then you turn the page. There's another theory which states that this has already happened. Altogether, I enjoyed this book. But the balance between funny absurd and just absurd was a bit more off than in the first volume. In between the grub of nonsense and absurdity, my attention was occasionally piqued when a flare of ingenuity or a hilariously funny paragraph passed by. Some ideas in this book are simply genius, like the idea that Earth was meant to be an experiment. Also, as in all books, the inventiveness of how Adams uses language kept amazing me. "If I ever meet myself," said Savant, "I'll hit myself so hard I won't know what's hit me." And yes, it's very funny at times. A side character is introduced as a dreamer, a thinker, a speculative philosopher, or, as his wife would have it, an idiot. Still, this book was a chore to get through. Too many pages in which nothing or hardly anything happens, or the one completely insane occurrence after the next. But then, at about 50 to 40 pages from the end, there are a few chapters that save this book, with chapter 29 as the undisputed highlight. If I could rate each chapter, chapter 29 would score 100 points out of 100. That is why I want to spend a few minutes on this chapter alone. For me, the essence of this series, if there even is one, is contained in this one chapter. In the 8 pages, a few of the characters finally meet with the ruler of the universe. He lives on a small, obscure world, somewhere in the middle of nowhere in particular, in a shack with a cat. During this visit, it's raining so hard that the noise of this downpour on the roof of his shack is deafening. Here are some snippets of the conversation with the ruler of the universe. "Do you rule the universe?" said Sappho. The man smiled at him. "I try not to." "How long have you been doing this?" "Ah," said the man, "this is a question about the past, is it? How can I tell that the past isn't a fiction, designed to account for the discrepancy between my immediate physical sensations and my state of mind?" When his decisions regarding out there in the universe come into the conversation, the man says, "How can you tell there's anything out there? The door's closed." Such a profound statement that reminded me of Schrödinger's cat. This is a thought experiment devised by the physicist Erwin Schrödinger. Imagine a cat. A flask of potion and a radioactive source are placed in a sealed box. If a Geiger counter were to detect radioactivity, that would mean that the flask with poison is shattered and that the cat is dead. One interpretation implies that, after a while, the cat is simultaneously alive and dead. Yet, with one look in the box, one sees the cat either alive or dead, not both alive and dead. This poses the question of when exactly quantum superposition ends and reality resolves into one possibility or the other. The fact that the ruler of the universe lives with a cat is not just a coincidence. Zarniwoop, who continues this conversation, asks the ruler of the universe, "You know there's a whole universe out there. You can't dodge your responsibilities by saying they don't exist." Upon which the ruler of the universe replies, "You're very sure of your facts. I couldn't trust the thinking of a man who takes the universe, if there is one, for granted. I only decide about my universe. My universe is my eyes and my ears. Anything else is hearsay." Zarniwoop finds this all monstrously wrong and says that what he decides in this shack of his affects the lives and fates of millions of people. "I've never met all these people you speak of," the ruler replies. "They only exist in words we hear. It is folly to say you know what is happening to other people. Only they know, if they exist. They have their own universes of their eyes and ears." To me, this is so brilliant. Meeting the ruler of the universe and start asking him questions with great anticipation, only to find out that he is merely the ruler of his own universe, like we all are. This chapter alone is worth plowing through the absurdity and boredom. At this point in the book, I was seriously wondering if I could manage to read through 3 more. But after reading chapter 29, I knew that these kind of genius strokes are worth slugging through 150 or something pages of text that has nothing much to say to me. The rest of the book is also very good and entertaining. Here, the ultimate answer to life is finally revealed to all living creatures in the universe. For this, the supercomputer, Deep Thought, has been doing calculations for millions of years. The answer, 42, means nothing to anyone. They realize at that point that they have forgotten to first ask the ultimate question of life to Deep Thought. Mainly because of this ending, I rated The Restaurant at the End of the Universe 68 out of 100, which compares to a decent 3.5 stars. Then the third book, Life, the Universe, and Everything Happened. And what I had feared indeed happened. Absurdism took over almost completely. The whole cricket war and wicket gate and what have you bored me, and at times even irritated me. Undoubtedly, I'm not cut out to understand the fun in this. I do not DNF a book very often, but there were several moments I was really tempted to do so. At those moments, I tell myself that there's always an experience to be had, even if that's an annoying one. The book starts off funny with this guy who is on a mission to insult the entire universe just for the fun of it. But very soon the eerie feeling crept upon me that what I was reading didn't have any direction at all, and were just words on paper for the sake of being words on paper. Adams really tested my resolve in trying to make something out of this collection of words. In between the overload of what I experienced as BS, there were a few mildly amusing scenes. This time even those were hardly worth the read for me. 39 out of 100, or 2 stars. I then procrastinated almost 3 months before picking up the 4th book. So long, and thanks for all the fish. To my surprise, I was enjoying this one almost as much as the first book in the series. After being offered a lift, Arthur Dent meets Fanny, or Fenchurch. Her brother, Russell, who is driving the car, explains that his sister is delusional. She's been talking about things that Arthur has experienced himself the previous 3 books. Before he even gets a chance to ask any questions, he's dropped off. The Saab seethed off into the night. Arthur watched it go, as stunned as a man might be who, having believed himself to be totally blind for 5 years, suddenly discovers that he had merely been wearing too large a hat. Brilliant. Just brilliant. Time and again, Arthur and Fanny meet, and every time they get separated again with absolutely no possibility of finding each other again. It's obvious that the universe intends they come together. The way they lose contact each time is hilariously funny, as well as the way they meet each time. And again, Adam's mastery of language blew me away. Take this description, for instance, of a bunch of sandpipers running along the margin of the shore, which seemed to have this problem. They needed to find their food in the sand, which a wave had just washed over, but they couldn't bear to get their feet wet. To deal with this problem, they ran with an odd kind of movement, as if they'd been constructed by somebody very clever in Switzerland. This is such a joy to read. I gave this 4th book 76 points out of 100. About Mostly Harmless, the last book in the series, I can be very brief. I did not like it at all. It took me about 30 days to struggle through the 230 pages. As with all the books, this one also is off to a very strong start. But after about 6 or 7 pages, the story becomes directionless, with an occasional uplifting paragraph. Reading got so boring that I found myself skipping many of the more complex sentences. This one was slightly less annoying than number 3. The story implicates that everything is connected with everything, but we never get to see the connections. 43 points out of 100. It is obvious that my reading experience of this series is all over the place, from extreme highs to very disappointing lows. Calculating the average of this series, I come out at 61 points out of 100. That's just 3 stars. To say that these books revolve around a plot is saying too much, in my opinion. For instance, in the beginning we learn that mice and dolphins are the actual rulers of Earth. But apart from some hints in So Long and Thanks for All the Fish, this is resolved nowhere. Perhaps Adams intended to wrap this up in later installments, which he never got around to writing. And no doubt this is resolved in the 6th book, And Another Thing, that was published in 2009 by Eowyn Colfer. But after fulfilling my chore of reading all 5 of the original books, I truly believe that I've had my fill. Enough is enough. Still, I'm glad that I persevered, because I wouldn't have wanted to miss out on the language wizardry and the flares of geniality by Douglas Adams. Please let me know your thoughts in the comments down below. What did I miss in the books that I didn't like? How was your reading experience? Should I still read the Eowyn Colfer book? Thank you very much for watching this video. Until we meet again at Dutch Greybeard.